today we're going to do our very first episode of Squad Goals. We're going to take a look at some pop culture references and we're going to build a team using the characters that are within those references. We're going to take a look at the giant-sized X-Men. Now, this first debuted in the comics in 1975. Joining me today and introducing the characters that they're going to have, we have Jordan from Flute's Loot that will be giving us a presentation on Nightcrawler and how he would build him. We have Phil Kearney with us that is going to be doing Colossus. And we have Josh from Dungeoneers Pack that will be taking Wolverine and being able to put that character together. And for myself, I will be giving a small idea of how you could play Storm in Dungeons and Dragons. So let's get this started. Jordan from Flute's Loot, you have Nightcrawler. How would you build Nightcrawler in the game?
So my build with Nightcrawler, I had kind of a tier list of what I wanted to get for sure in the build versus what would just be nice to have. So one thing that people will think with Nightcrawler is you want to be blue, have a tail, be able to wall crawl, and obviously teleportation. You want to be able to teleport pretty freely and eventually be able to teleport with someone else because he's really good at rescuing people. He doesn't just teleport himself, he can rescue others or even teleport others. So the way I went about it was I said, okay, what are all the things I could do? And I thought, oh, I could be a Shadar Kai elf and have like the Misty Step sort of ability where they like resist damage, and I can flavor that to be him teleporting and avoiding damage. And that's what I thought I was going to do for a while. But then I realized what I could do is have him be a tiefling, which is pretty obvious. Then repurpose it as a Dampier, which, if you don't know, is a lineage that can kind of go over another lineage from Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. And the reason I went with that is because that's the easiest way that I found to get proper wall crawling passively as a character. Because at level 3, the Dampier can crawl on walls and hang off of ceilings freely, and they don't need to like a hand on the wall. So then I thought, how do I get a lot of free teleportation? And I realized after a lot of thought that the best way to do that, I think, was not the Shadow Monk, because that's too limited to shadows. I went with the Echo Knight Fighter because you can freely teleport between your Echo. And so if you just reflavor it as if you're teleporting really quickly between 2 points, your Echo can work like just yourself teleporting and making attacks and that sort of thing. And I really liked that because you can make your Echo as many times as you want, switch places with it, 3 levels of Echo Knight Fighter. And then I really wanted to get a lot of those teleportation spells along the way as fast as possible. That gets Dimension Door specifically for teleporting myself and someone else. I ended up deciding between doing a Sorcerer, because I thought it would be cool to also use meta magic to be able to distance spell and teleport extra far, but I ended up going it with Trickery Cleric because I like that they get more hit points slightly. And Kurt Wagner is Nightcrawler, and he is also very religious, whatever that religion be. He's devout, and so I thought Cleric works extra well, and so I went with Trickery Cleric, and they get Dimension Door. They also get Blink. They do not get Misty Step, but you can take Fey Touch as a feat and learn Misty Step, and so that's not really a problem. Along the way, a few more details. Fighting style was dueling for the fighter, so you can do a short sword and shield because Nightcrawler is known to use scimitars and that sort of thing when he's getting extra violent, I guess, let's say. And then also Disguise Self is one that the Trickery Cleric gets, which he's known to use disguises so that he hides his very blue appearance. Blessing of the Trickster is great for helping someone with their stealth. And he also gets Invoke Duplicity, which again, kind of like the Echo Knight, where you flavor it as teleporting between the two. Any illusion of himself can kind of work in that way. So he also gets Mirror Image, which I think is a great way to flavor him teleporting to dodge attacks. Pass Without Trace could be reflavored as you literally teleporting your whole party somewhere without being noticed. I also really like getting the Sentinel feat at level 7 with Trickery 4, because then you can use your Echo Knight double as if you teleported to that spot to like stop someone's movement and like keep them in place. Channel Divinity Cloak of Shadows at level 6. One of his lesser known powers is he actually can almost become invisible in the dark, and that is Kurt Nightcrawler.
I like the use of the Echo Knight. That's really clever. I also like the duplicity, pulling the mirror images. I think it's a smart build, man. Well done.
Yeah, I really like the use of specifically the Echo Knight and using its teleportation ability to actually mimic Nightcrawler's ability to teleport. That was really, really smart. For the illusions or the duplicates you can have, it simply could be like the enemies saw you at that last point.
Yeah, I really like that. I was getting visions of Nightcrawler being that Echo Knight and seeing, because when I used to play the video game, I remember just like there's like moments and you could just see the trajectory of where he was teleporting to and stuff. And I really, yeah, I'm very impressed with the Echo Knight. Well done on that. Phil, you've got Colossus. How are you building Colossus for us?
Pretty straightforward. Artificer armor all the way to 20. If you wanted to go early X-Men when he would have tales of him on the street as a normal person, then you could opt just for variant human. If you wanted to just go Deadpool and Chrome all the time forever, I would want to go with a Warforged look. We'll eventually be able to get gear that's going to make up for the physicality stuff. It gets fulfilled by 10, it gets really good at 14, and it becomes ridiculous at 20. The quick skim, an armor, whatever armor you're proficient with and wearing technically, but you want to be proficient with it so you don't screw yourself up. So whatever armor you're wearing becomes fused to you. It's permanent until you say it's not. It does thunder damage. If you go with the Guardian, and I'd only be going with Guardian, it gives you temporary hit points. And it allows you to ignore any kind of penalties involved with the armor. And when you punch things, you do thunder damage. The spell repertoire that comes from the Artificer, like Enlarge, Absorb Elements, Freedom of Movement. He can just break free from stuff. He's Colossus. Stone Skin, pretty obvious. All the gear that he gets from the Artificer is also subtle stuff like Ring of Mind Shielding, Ring of Free Action, if you don't want to worry about the freedom of movement. Resistant Armor gives you more tankiness when you get hit. Ring of Shielding gives you armor class boosts. You can eventually get a Belt of Hill Giant Strength, which bumps him up to 21 strength, and an Amulet of Health, which puts him at 19 eventually. He has 6 times per day your level in temporary hit points that you can load. So at 20th level, he'd be able to do an extra 120 temporary hit points per day, and he'd be packing on average like around 250 hit points with average rolls with that kind of a constitution. He can tank 300-400 points of damage a day. So, and his armor class is going to be 22, and he's doing 3d8 damage from the fists that he's punching with. And he's got abilities that, like, if somebody tries to run by you, he just grabs him and yanks him to him. It's great. It's a great build. It's dummy simple, but it has the flexibility of, like, if I need to heal somebody, it's like, let me cook muffins for you. And he cooks the muffins and he hands it to him. He's like, bless or cure light or whatever you need to do. You can BS the flavor because he's a really personable guy. And on top of it, he's a painter. If I recall correctly, there was a time he was spending with Dazzler, and Dazzler couldn't be photographed because of what she does to light. So she always had to be painted like old school album covers.
Yeah,
That's
were
pretty
you
good.
tempted at all to throw in like a barbarian level just to like make your effective HP even bigger? Or
Yeah, I was actually when we first talked about it, I misunderstood this and I thought I was supposed to like create a unique subclass. So I like went full in on 20 barbarian, and all of his stuff was about like having unlimited lifting capacity, being able to throw any kind of object like a Wolverine at something to cause extra damage.
Yeah, outside of being Colossus, that just sounds like a fun tank to play. I mean, you've got your hard to hit, you've got all the hit points, you've got the damage. I mean, yeah, that's definitely Colossus in a nutshell.
A literal tank.
So let's take a look at Wolverine. Josh, what do you have for us?
All right, Wolverine's a tough one. Wolverine is a character with a lot of comic history, has a lot of small things that kind of add up to probably one of the most powerful and iconic X-Men in media. While most of the other X-Men tend to have 1, maybe 2 powers, Wolverine has heightened senses, he has adamantium claws and an adamantium skeleton, and then a healing factor. Not all of these things make sense in D&D and 5th edition. So I needed to look at, especially the healing factor, a variety of ways to actually reinforce how he's able to survive and able to take hits. But first, I start off with Hildorf, specifically because in the comics, Wolverine's only 5'4".
Yeah.
He's a short guy. In the movies, yeah, Hugh Jackman's 6 foot plus, but in the comics, Wolverine isn't. He's short king, man. He's the short king. So yeah, I went with dwarf, but also Hildorf has a couple things. Dark vision, so this also plays into his heightened senses. Dwarven resilience and Dwarven toughness also play into the healing factor. So Dwarven resilience, they have advantage against poison. Dwarven toughness, they get additional hit points. So those 2 things easily factored into it. Part of the struggle Wolverine has, he can't really get drunk. Dwarven resilience, he's chugging beers just to get a little buzz before it goes away. For background, it would have been very easy to go into soldier because Wolverine has a long history of a military career and a variety of settings. But I went with Haunted One because it made a little bit more sense of the tragedy behind him of not really having his full memories and it constantly going from a tragedy to tragedy and kind of reliving life and eventually kind of regaining everything back. So what Haunted One gave me was investigation, and it also gave me survival, which both play into the heightened senses idea of being able to kind of track and look deeper into things. Investigation also calls back to some of his military training as a CIA agent, and then survival is just his ability to survive in the world. After the Weapon X, he was pretty much was full feral. So this is where he kind of gained the natural ability to survive. And then for my classes, I did a 8-3 split between Barbarian and Fighter. And for Barbarian, I went with Path of the Beast because it was very, very straightforward. I'm going to Berserker Rage, go and get my claws, and just go to town and get as many attacks as possible. And then stuff like taking Perception to get as another representation of his heightened senses. Danger Sense also is another thing that represents kind of his heightened senses, able to avoid attacks, avoid stuff that's coming towards him. Reckless Attack is that Berserker Rage, the Berserker Barrage that you pretty much see like in every Marvel vs. Capcom game that he features in. He's just going in and attacking. And then I took Feat Dwarven Fortitude as another way to represent his healing factor. And then with the additional fast movement, it kind of like propels Wolverine to kind of be this snowball effect of a frontline attacker, more focusing on attacking and just dealing as much damage as possible. So that's from 1 to 5. Then I jumped over to Samurai Fighter to also do another callback to his time in Japan, picking up blind fighting as another way to represent his heightened senses. So anybody within a small sense, he picks up that scent, he can still go to town and fight them. Second Wind is another big thing that represents his healing factor. Just take a little small breather and then just heal back up, and then Action Surge again, Berserker Rage, just go to town and keep attacking. And then with the Fighter, you get Fighting Spirit, and this is kind of a little bit a non-bow because you rage and then you kind of want to Path the Barbarian, and you're using your claws, you get an extra attack as a bonus action, but you need to use your bonus action to hit Fighting Spirit, which will give you advantage on all your attacks, which plays nicely with the way the Barbarians are set up with Brutal Critical and stuff like that later on. And after those 3 levels in a Fighter, jump back into Barbarian for the rest of the way just to finish up and really going into taking Bestial Soul, Feral Instinct, but really picking up another feat and going Skill Expert to really double down on heightened senses and to get expertise and perception. Probably the most used skill in the game, but also it just hits that note of Wolverine being able to track with his eyes, his all his senses, and then also picking up history, as at this point he started to remember everything he's gone through. That is Wolverine. I was tempted to go Ranger a little bit because that also had that sense of being able to track, but the madness that would have been with a Barbarian Ranger split was what turned me off a bit, because it would have been a strength, wisdom, con, and dex build. Really, really rough to kind of figure out. Fighter does the trick.
Very good. Yeah, when I think of Wolverine, I think of rage. I mean, that's just like the first thing that always comes to mind is him just getting angry. The veins are popping out of his head. He's got the claws out. Yeah, I definitely love the barbarian aspect of it.
I also really like that rage, the damage resistance that you get from that. You could flavor it as like you're regenerating instead of just resisting.
So I guess that leaves me, and I did a character build for Storm. And the way that I'm thinking of Storm is I want to go with a thief or rogue level 1 and the rest of the way out on Storm Sorcerer. Storm is a human in the comics, but I wanted to go with an Air Genasi just because it seemed more flavorful. Air Genasi also gets the levitate ability, so I really like that as far as being able to disengage from whoever might be in melee combat with them. They can push off a little bit, levitate up in the air, and then hit them with Ray of Frost and whatever cantrips that she has. As far as background, Storm was an orphan. Her parents had died in an Arab-Israeli conflict in the comics. A plane had crashed into her home. So picking Urchin was an easy selection. And also it gives me sleight of hand, stealth, and the herbalism kit. And all of those are important to her backstory because she was an expert thief in her younger days, very good at pickpocketing and picking locks. She is also an expert gardener. Now with the rogue, I wanted to hammer in on that first level of rogue for several reasons. I wanted to emphasize her younger days before she officially became Storm with all of the powers that she had, highlight on that expert thief. And not only that, but as far as the game goes, we get a lot better skills, plus we get the ability to wear leather armor. Acrobatics, she's very known for her agility and swiftness, so I get acrobatics there. She's very high influential with connections and things. She was the Queen of Wakanda for a while, I believe, and so persuasion came in there for natural leadership skills. Expert Tactician, which I applied with Perception and Insight, being able to read the battlefield. After the first level Rogue, I'm going all the way out with Storm Sorcerer. It has her name in it, Storm Sorcerer. So it's perfect. It's easy. You get flight abilities at level 1, where instead of like a disengage, because I was tempted to go 2 levels of Rogue for that cunning action where we could disengage as a bonus action, but as a first level Storm Sorcerer, we get something magic, and it allows you to fly up to 10 feet without provoking an opportunity attack, and that's a bonus action. It's pretty much the same as a disengage that you could use. At 6th level, we're going to get Heart of Storm, which is going to give us lightning and thunder resistance, plus it will also do a little bit of extra damage to those that are around her. She can stop rain in one spot. She can rearrange winds. At 14th level, we have Storm's Fury, which lets her push some attacker, causes some lightning damage. And then at 18th level, with the Storm Sorcerer, we get Wind Soul, which lightning and thunder immunity, plus she can fly with the 60-foot movement speed, or cut back on that a little bit and help some of her allies fly. So I really like that, because when I think Storm, I think flying. So the ability at first level to be able to disengage, fly 10 feet to get away, or at least to levitate, which is the beginning part of her being able to fly. Now, as far as feats, there's 3 feats that I would take. The first one's going to be the telekinetic feat. I'm doing that because I want that +1 to charisma to get my charisma up to the next level, but I also can reflavor it a little bit. Like if she does shove someone, maybe it's a little bit of wind that shoves that individual. The other 2 that I picked, again, this one's going to be more thematic than optimization, and that's going to be the resilient feat for the +1 to wisdom and give us proficiency in wisdom saving throws, because she does have an indomitable will. The third one that I'm going to pick is going to be at level 12 or 13, and that's going to be the inspiring leader feat, because she was a leader of the X-Men for quite some time. So that one definitely makes a lot of sense. Finally, I do want to introduce some of the spells that I chose, and a lot of them are going to be lightning and thunder based. They're going to be cold based, and they're going to be air or gusty wind based. And those cantrips, I'm looking at Gust, Lightning Lure, Prestidigitation, Ray of Frost. First level, I'm picking up Absorb Elements, Fog Cloud, and Witch Bolt. Second level, Gust of Wind and Shatter. Third level, this one's the one I'm really looking forward to. I finally get the ability to fly, and I get Lightning Bolt. Both are very important. Fourth level, Dimension Door and the Storm Sphere. Again, it has her name right in it. You can't help but pick that. Fifth level, I might pick up a few other things, but sixth level, I'm really looking forward to that one for Chain Lightning and Investure of Wind. And that's as far as I went with this build. I think you can get the flavor of playing Storm from right at the get-go. I mean, you're playing her entire character arc, and you can have a lot of fun with it. If I were to give advice for optimization, you may want to look at Tempest Cleric, taking 2 levels of Tempest Cleric to be able to maximize lightning and thunder damage. But I think this one with the 1 level of Rogue will be a lot of fun, simply to get the better skills.
That's awesome. Freaking on point, man. There's so much weather and lightning based stuff inside of the Storm Sorcerer already. You can really just kit out your entire payload and just stain on flavor. That's great.
She seems like a really solid like blaster controller sort of character. Kind of like normally you would think druids would be like the go-to for that, but I think with your loadout you have for her, like she pretty much can trump a druid and being able to control the area for her and blast people away. I really like how this came out.
I like how you incorporated her backstory with the rogue level as well. That's fun. I don't remember if it's comic book canon or if it was just like one of the TV shows or something, but I think she was also claustrophobic. That might be a fun flaw to use with her as well. It's not really a mechanical thing, but it just came to me that might be fun to think about too.
That's kind of what I like about the X-Men, is a lot of them do have those quirks or flaws that you can include in your game, and you hit it right on the head. Yeah, she was definitely claustrophobic. I believe she doubted herself as far as being a leader at one point. She went through a few of those phases. So if you're going to play a squad with a theme like this, like the Giants size X-Men, I really like the ability of including those quirks. So I'm glad you brought that up.
It made me realize I kind of glossed over something with Nightcrawler. I went with the background of the entertainer, a tumbler, because he was part of the circus for a while. So he's very acrobatic, and so that was a good one. I tried to make sure he also got religion as a skill for him, but getting acrobatics and performance from his background just made a lot of sense, and it feels good.
And I think that's something. So if you want to play a group of characters like this, and I think it's fun, any anytime you can get together with your fellow players and be like, hey, let's play the X-Men. Let's all pick an X-Men character and build them, and this is how we're going to play our new campaign. I think anytime you can do that and really hone in on those backstories, on those flaws, on those abilities, it's just a ton of fun.
Yeah, and then even then, like in the comics, these characters are work kind of in this unison on the narrative level, and they're pretty much on how their powers actually work. And it's a really great transition into D&D, since it is a team-based game. I think there's too much advice and stuff out there in regards to how you're building your character that just focus on solely on you. That taking the time to talk with your party and be like, hey, we all like this group, we all like the X-Men, let's play the X-Men, and you'll find that everything kind of just slots in together. Everybody's going to be able to fit into a role, have their time to shine, and actually be active in the game, instead of kind of overlapping what you kind of see in a lot of like single character builds that are just focused on making yourself really good.
Now that we've heard each other's builds, because we didn't really vet these ahead of time, we just kind of made our own, and now we kind of enter the phase of let's see how we would adapt as a team, just like we encourage players of D&D to do. Look at what your other players are doing with their characters and think how you can adapt. One thing that came to mind when I was making Nightcrawler was I thought, do I have to go with a climbing speed lineage or the Dampier like I went with, or could I just have an artificer in the party who could give me the slippers of spider crawling or whatever they're called, spider climbing? that would also do the same thing. And so I really like the Dampier flavor, but it's kind of fun to say like, oh, we have an artificer. What are some items that they plan on making? Is there room to make the spider crawling stuff for me? Because I see that conversation come up a lot with artificers. Is other people in the party are like, hey, could you hook me up?
Right.
So
Right.
I only need 4 items of the 8 that I get as an armorer for me to fulfill what I want with Colossus. So I've already picked out a small selection of stuff that I would be happy to hand off to the team, like the Boots of the Winding Path. It requires attunement. 6th level Artificer, I can give you teleport as a bonus action 15 feet. Doesn't say there's a time limit on it or a limit at all.
Yeah.
So I could happily hand off Nightcrawler infinite teleportation.
That'd be cool. I don't remember. Can artificers make boots of springing and
jumping and
whatever they're
springing?
called?
Yeah,
Because
they
it'd
sure
be
can.
funny to give those to Wolverine, because the Beast Barbarian can already do like super jumps.
Yes.
So if you gave him the boots, you could totally flavor it. I think you were kind of referencing Colossus, because they do the fastball special.
Yeah.
Where Colossus would throw Wolverine, and so if you can jump enough as Wolverine, you can flavor it as Colossus tossing you. That would be really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also the parry up with wound closure. It automatically stabilizes you if you're dying, and if you roll hit dice to gain hit points, it doubles. So if he's using second wind, it'll be like a third wind. That's that's pretty strong. And it seemed obvious to give wing boots to Storm because it's 4 hours of unlimited flight.
Colossus has a bag full of goodies.
Yeah, I mean, and the one leftover item I would have, the 8 slot would just be a bag of bolts. It's not necessarily optimal, but one thought that I did have was that a Storm could hit Colossus with a shocking hands, or like just like a piddly, what the weakest lightning damage that you have. I could absorb elements, and then when I punch somebody, I'd be able to channel the lightning that she hits him with through him to hit whoever his target is. So he's doing thunder and lightning damage on a hit as a reaction every turn.
I think team tactics, what we can probably discuss, like roles our character would fill with, now that we know what everybody's trying to do.
Okay, I can take some of that.
Nightcrawler would kind of keep his distance and use his echo to do attacks if he could. And I'd probably also use bless a lot, but reflavor it as like, I'm not just like blessing us with holy power, but like your attacks and saving throws do better because maybe I am teleporting around to like intervene and help.
Nice.
And so when you go to strike someone, you're blessed with a D4 of extra accuracy, but maybe that's me teleporting in really quick to the ground and doing like an upper kick at their shield to open them up and that sort of thing. Especially because Storm won't really rely on attack rolls as much, but we 3 will. So the bless covers 3 of us without having to upcast it. I think that's great. And so I can just kind of be like the support fighter in it all.
What I'm noticing with all 4 of our builds, there is a quote unquote lack of healer. It's like what people would see in a traditional thing, but I don't think this group really needs it. You got Colossus here, who pretty much has, you're going to be super hard to hit, and then he has a lot of self-preservation, a lot of ways to mitigate damage on his own. Wolverine build is the same way. There's a lot of ways to self-heal and kind of keep both of us be pretty much in the fight, just tanking, hitting everything. And then I'm noticing with Nightcrawler, you're going to be zooming in and out of fight, so you're not really going to be the front end of the damage, which leaves it okay for Storm to sit in the back and just blast away and just kind of control. So like I'm looking at it as like, you don't really need like a quote-unquote full healer for this group. You can just survive on potions and all your other features, and you should be good to go.
Yeah, I think that's in the company stash at Xavier's mansion, isn't it? All those healing potions and super healing potions.
Yeah.
Like just
Absolutely.
open the fridge, take out a few, like yeah.
You know what else I like is that the only one of us using heavy armor is Colossus. I can give Blessing of the Trickster to give advantage on stealth, and so that offsets the heavy armor's usual disadvantage. And then with Pass Without Trace, like we really can be a pretty good ambush squad
Yeah,
as
no
well.
kidding. That's great.
Which reminds me of in this comic I've got on the shelf right here. There's actually a scene where a bunch of enemies, because this is one of their more brutal comics where they actually like kill people, and Nightcrawler and Magic teleport Wolverine and Colossus just straight through the head of a car and just pulverize these guys. And so like, and so that's kind of what I'm picturing is like us doing that. Just imagine you're driving and all of a sudden like portals open up and Colossus and Wolverine just smash through your windshield. Like
That's
brutal
insane.
stuff.
Yeah.
Skill empowerment I can give to anybody. Intellect fortress I can give to anybody.
Also, we have the jump
Thundercloud.
spell too. So super
Okay.
beast jumping, jump spell, boots of springing. That's a lot of jumping.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I can back you up on Bless with the guidance. Just stay in there. You're doing great.
That does prompt, because then you have to ask the DM like, hey, we have all this jumping power. Are you
How
gonna
far do you
limit
stack
us
it?
to only jumping as far as Wolverine's movement speed, or can we have some fun with that? That's a good question for the DM. You know.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
or maybe an exception if you had catapult. That was another way to do fastball special. The DM's like, can you just catapult Wolverine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
I'd be happy to do that. That'd be grand.
Yeah, that's a good way to bargain, right? Is if the DM
Mhm.
doesn't want to just give you the free jumping without movement, just say, well, what if we just burn a spell? Like Catapult couldn't usually throw someone, but what if we do all this other investment? What if we burned a spell slot to do it too? And if I were the DM, I'd be like, all right, go for it. You know,
Sure. Right.
Mhm.
Storm could use spells like Fog Cloud or Sleet
Mhm.
Storm that completely removes enemy visibility. And Wolverine can still see because he's got the blind
Blind
fighting.
style
Very
for his
good.
senses.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, maybe I would do that too. And I would just be teleporting in and being able to whack them. Could really do a lot of like cloud cover from Storm. If there was going to be more people in the party, like a Jean Grey, they
Mhm.
often do like a telepathic link so that they can all sync up their attacks. So that would make sense why maybe I could see, quote, in the fog, because Wolverine's feeding me what he's picking up on.
Yeah.
That could be some
like
fun
that.
stuff if we started adding more party members.
That's
I do
really
like that.
cool.
What do you guys think out of this 4? If we were to add a 5th, what role would they need to fill to kind of make up our shortcomings, and which character within the giant size would be able to fit that role? Thunderbird and Cyclops. I think those are the other 2 we didn't pick. But then, in addition to that, the other members of the team were Sunfire and Banshee, were also giant size X-Men. So all 4 of them were missing.
I really do like the idea of Jean Grey as like an aberrant mind sorcerer or something like that,
It would be
giving us all telepathic links. Then we'd have 2 sorcerers. That just sounds fun.
Since I don't have a lot of familiarity with the X-Men and stuff, would there be one that is more of a support type of a class, like a bard or a cleric? Do any of them fit that role?
I mean, there's so
Uh,
many X-Men, but
yeah.
like just giant size, we're more
Giant
limited.
size,
But
yeah.
there's a lot of them that would be great supports. You mentioned like, what if we did have a healer? Elixir is an
Yeah.
X-Men in more recent comics who can heal. Zorn, before he was revealed to be Magneto, which he basically looked like a Warforged, was pretty cool, and using nanobites to like heal Professor Xavier's paralysis and stuff like that. Some
Yeah.
pretty nutty stuff.
Yeah, Dazzler would be pretty strong in like in the bard, especially being a bard.
Yeah, that's
I
really
will-
straightforward.
And then maybe Jubilee. Her abilities aren't as expansive, but they're very more support driven. It could probably be some sort of a variation of an illusionist build. I can see with
Mm.
that. But yeah, even if we were just still limiting to the giant size, the only one I can possibly see, well, Professor X, but he's actually still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun.
He's
Yeah.
the one that sends them out to go find to rescue the rest of the X-Men on that first issue.
I can see Prof X doing like a divination wizard, and then like loading up on like on Scry and Arcane Eye. Yeah, so it could be he could just take over the mind of. I know he can see through the eyes of normal people. I don't know if he can see through animals or not.
I mean, he's a professor, so he's smart. What if he was an enchantment wizard, because he's all about like mind control and mind
Mhm.
reading, except when he has Cerebro to do like the tracking and stuff like you were talking about, like, and he can set up that telepathic link like we were talking about. What if you also went with for a level or a few levels of Peace Cleric to do that bond that they can create with each other, so that it's kind of like a bless spell, and then later on it helps them like coordinate their efforts in some way. That
Yeah.
could be a
That's
cool
smart.
way to play
I like that.
Professor X. Yeah, I think we've got a pretty good team here, and that's one of the great things about X-Men as inspiration, is there's so many different characters and specialties that it's kind of
Yeah.
easy to come together if you and all your friends like X-Men. And again, you don't have to be like, oh, we are the X-Men, but sometimes it's fun to find some inspiration along the way and just try to build them. And sometimes you find concepts you really like. Like I'd be excited to play this group as we just presented it. I
Yep.
think we'd have some fun.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Is there anything else we could discuss that would be helpful for people to plan teams and tactics instead of just their own characters with like no thought for the campaign or what the other players are doing? Is there anything we could discuss in that way?
The only comment I would say is you were saying about leaning into flavor and bribing the DM to let you bend the rules at a sacrifice. And if you're looking to bend the rules, if you're looking to bend it so that your character can make someone else's character shine more, like I'm willing to sacrifice catapult spell slots so that Wolverine can perform the cannonball special, for instance. Like I'm going to use my resources so that he can shine. I as a DM have often like if you'll sacrifice a feat, I'll let you do this extra thing. Or if you eat up 2 of your 3rd level spell slots immediately when you wake up, then I'll let you do this little perk. You can always compromise, especially if you're willing to give up more than the DM would think that you would. I think DMs actually would crave that from players because it allows them to have a little bit more control over what their abilities actually are. Being able to sculpt the party into, well, this is what they do well. And I know there's still holes in their abilities here, and here. So when I need to pull out challenges, I know I can still approach the team and not worry about just getting rolled over.
Yeah, I can think of some examples when I've been a DM and a player, and man, do those moments stick out when someone is trying to make someone else look good. And this is an improvisation principle I've talked about in an improv video,
Nice.
where the more you try to make your fellow players and the DM look good, the more people are going to want to play with you and the more fun people are going to have.
Really.
And so if
Yeah.
you can do those negotiation moments like, oh, so-and-so's trying to do something, but the DM's not totally cool with it. What if I burn a resource to make it happen? You know, have that little negotiation moment. Whoa, they're really trying to make that other person succeed. And that really sticks out. And as a DM, I'm like always open to that sort of thing.
Absolutely. I love that.
I think for me, like if players are looking to do this and wanting to corral their group to really figure out and build together, I don't think that conversation gets spoken to enough. We talk a lot about session 0, and then everybody kind of sort of brings their own character already. And sometimes you get these mixed mass parties of just like solo characters that all of a sudden are kind of just banded together. It's a good opportunity to take session 0, not bring anything, and everybody kind of just talk and be like, hey, what if we do the X-Men? What if we do Fantastic Four? Whatever team you want to do, but also be upfront with the DM and let them know, hey, you're running this kind of campaign. We think if we kind of model or inspired by these characters fit within that realm, it gives a DM incentive to kind of include some more of those themes into the game. Because X-Men alone, it's the mutant gene that your DM can very much include some sort of there's this like hex blood magic with all these characters that are kind of binding them, and you kind of can bring the flavor of the mutant gene and mutants into that world and bind your characters even closer together too. Like you open your possibilities. It's mainly communication is, I think, is always the big point for all this stuff. Just be open and talk with each other and with your DM.
I think not only that, but when you bring, hey, we're all going to play X-Men characters, so the DM's like, okay, I get villains, you know? So, right on.
I've been into so many session 0s where the players just kind of show up and passively listen to the DM, and the DM kind of goes over some stuff. Sometimes it can go in one ear and out the other, and players don't align with what was even talked about. It's kind of weird. If players are active in session 0, like, hey, what are you doing? And I've tried to do this sometimes, and sometimes it's kind of like hitting a wall. Like, hey, does anyone want to know my character ahead of time? Maybe we have history together, and it's like crickets. That hurts sometimes. People should be more willing in session 0 as players to really feel things out and really explore things and use that time. Otherwise, session 0 oftentimes can be a waste of time if you're not actively engaged in it.
Yeah, I absolutely love it when at least a few of the players like, hey, let's do a shared backstory or something like that. Those are awesome. I'm just sit back and listen.
So even then, I played with my play group for years now, and then even then, when we started a new campaign, you can feel when the synergy is there with the characters, and everybody kind of just brought their solo hero into the game, and you feel it. And most of the time, those campaigns we played, they end pretty quick, and the ones that end up lasting longer, we end up playing them. It's more, there's a bit of a structure where like, hey, we're building in a team orientation, and everybody sort of picks the other class or whatever, and then we end up having more fun that way. So
Yeah.
it's just changing that mindset of we, not me.
You can think of concepts that you normally wouldn't when you work together, like what we were kind of talking about. Like one time, my wife and I kind of planned our characters together, and she was going to be a big bugbear, and I was going to be a tiny kobold. So I was like, what if I just ride around on your back in your backpack all the time? You know?
So fun.
It's like stuff like that is fun to think of ahead of time, and it gets you excited to play. This is why we are doing this series of squad goals, is to inspire you to plan as a team instead of just lone character, your lone wolf who somehow becomes part of the group.
So those are the characters that we would build if we were having an entire party that was the giant size X-Men. Leave a comment below. Let us know what character you would bring to the table and what you think of these builds. What would you do differently? And did you enjoy this type of video? I want to thank my YouTube friends for joining us. Let them know where they can find you. Jordan?
Yeah, you can find me at the Flute Salute YouTube channel. I do all kinds of D&D content. It's kind of a whatever is the flavor of the week with me and my wife doing videos.
How about you, Phil?
The best way to keep track of what I have going on is through Twitter at Phil Kearney, as written at FILKEARNEY. You can also search on YouTube for Phil Kearney, and you'll find my content there. I paint. You can search Phil Kearney on DM's Guild to see all the products I put out there, 100% preview. So if you like them, buy them. Otherwise, skip it.
And Josh?
Hello, I am Josh from Dungeoneers Pack. My channel focuses on character builds based off of flavor, and also I focus on character options and how you can actually fit them into other 5th edition settings, all wrapped up in a nice short presentation video.
Fantastic. Thanks again, everybody, for joining me, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. On to the next.